everybody. Welcome to our fireside chat with LanguageCert. I'm Patrick Pheasant. I'm the Head of Education Partnerships for Australia and New Zealand for LanguageCert. And today I'm very honoured to be joined by Cathy Jones, who's an Assessment Development Specialist from LanguageCert in the United Kingdom. Welcome, Cathy.
Hi, Patrick. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, no, great to see you too, and thanks for offering to join me in a bit of a fireside chat. I'm really excited to hear what you've got to say about a few topics. I guess today we're going to be
Mm,
talking about oracy in AI, human-centeredness in assessment, and even some cool topics like radical kindness. So I'm just super excited. And
Things all close to our heart.
yes, for sure. And look, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to chat with you in this period because you're going to be presenting in Australia this month. First
Yeah.
in Melbourne at the English Australia Victoria PD Fest on the 17th of May, and then we're very happy to have you present in Sydney at the NIAS Management Conference, which is on the 22nd of May, followed by the English Australia PD New South Wales Fest on the 24th of May. It's so exciting.
So I'm so looking forward to coming. I've never been to Australia, and I really can't wait to engage with the people there. It's going to be brilliant fun, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure the Australian audience is really going to be on the edge of their seats to hear what you've got to say and to hear about your experience. But to start, for our Australian and New Zealand audience, Cathy, can you give us a little introduction about yourself? Let us know, about your role and what your interests are.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, as you said, I'm an assessment development specialist at LanguageCert, and I've been with the company for 3 years now. But I've actually worked my whole career in assessment, right?
Oh, wow.
The whole thing. And I used to think that assessment to me, it always felt like slightly the dry end of the
Mm,
teaching, learning spectrum. It was like
mm,
I'd be going to conferences in my early days, and there'd be teachers talking about fantastic stuff they've been doing with like
mm,
maybe a class of Chinese students, and we all made a dragon, and then we did pen pals and we did exchanges, and I'd have to stand up at the end of this and sort of say, "Oh yes, this is how we assess it. 1 mark for
mm,
this, 1 mark for that," and it felt quite, quite dry. And I had
mm.
that feeling quite a lot during my career. I spent a long time working at Cambridge Assessment, and I've been freelance for a number of years before starting with PeopleCert. But actually, I've started to, I think maybe it's old age, I don't know, but I'm coming to this kind of new perspective. And you hear
Mm,
a lot qualifications open doors, qualifications are
yes,
powerful to something
yeah.
else, to something transformative. That's powerful, isn't it?
Mm,
So you
mm,
kind of reflect on what you're doing and you think, well, hang on, yeah, okay. So maybe there is something greater here, and there is this kind of moral, ethical responsibility to make sure
right.
that these things are right. What are these
Yes.
chances that you're giving
Mm,
or actually removing from somebody through the vehicle of the assessment that you're creating and delivering?
mm,
And
mm,
there is an interesting tension there to make sure that it is absolutely right, and that's where academic research comes in, impact
mm,
analysis, making sure that what you're doing is as good as it can possibly be.
mm,
And so, that gave me this kind of sort of a greater love actually for what I was doing. And then I thought,
mm,
okay, so what this moral and ethical accountability, what else can you do? And after a long time working for the same organization, I'm now in a position where I'm finding myself thinking, actually, there is creativity in assessment. There is
mm. Yes.
certainly tremendous creativity in the teaching and learning space,
Oh, for
but
sure.
I think
Yeah.
there is huge scope for creativity in
Mm,
assessment, for
mm,
sure. So we hear a lot about, the dangers of teaching to the test. You can teach
mm,
to the test if the test is the right test.
mm,
I'm working in English proficiency qualifications, so it's
mm.
already a crowded space, isn't it?
Yes.
There are lots of key players in this market, How can
Sure.
I, the way I'm kind of approaching it is, how can I use my burning sense of creativity to show the
Mm.
world why they need another test? Right? Is there something we can do through this vehicle of assessment that's
Yes.
more? It has to do
Yeah.
all the great and important things and get them right. But is there scope to do something else? And that's the place I'm coming to now, latterly.
Yeah. No, that's
And
awesome.
that's what I'm going to
Yeah,
talk about.
and kind of,
Yeah.
it's great to talk to someone who's so, like, enthusiastic about, assessment and,
Yeah.
as you said, like, people often think assessment's really dry, it's a necessary
Exactly.
evil. We've got a lot of
Nonsense.
people, yeah, got a lot of people kind of
Yeah.
teaching to the test as well, and, of
Yeah.
course, students, that's all they like, it's their obsession is like, is this going to be
Yeah.
assessed, what's the
Yeah.
assessment? So I think it's great to hear that we can take a creative approach to
Yeah.
assessment, and
Well,
also be really passionate about
if
it.
you think about what we've seen over like recent, over a number of years now, is this sort of closer
Mm,
integration of assessment and learning, learning for
mm,
assessment, or even assessment for learning. And there are
mm,
lots of creative ways of integrating these two things. It's not such a linear, you're teaching first, assessment at the end, forget it, move on.
mm,
That's very
mm.
much the place I'm coming from in
Yeah,
terms of
and
what I've been doing. And at
yeah,
Language Cert, sorry, you asked what I was doing at Language Cert. So I said I'm working in English proficiency testing. So specifically, I've been developing Language Cert Academic and Language Cert
right,
General, for
yes,
both qualifications, tests of English language proficiency, the Language Cert Academic for admission to higher education, which is what I'm
yes.
going to be about in Australia.
Yeah, awesome. And these are two, both Language Cert Academic and Language Cert General, two
Mm.
relatively new tests to Australia and New Zealand. I mean, Language Cert
Yeah,
has been around for quite a long time, but these two tests are really new and fresh to the market, and we're really excited to see how it's going to grow in Australia and New Zealand.
yeah.
So it's been
Really
great to have the
hoping you
opportunity.
guys like it. New to the market, but not new in development.
Yeah,
These guys
yeah,
have been with me a while now.
yeah. That's right. So assessment. I mean, it means different things to different people. Could you? I mean, you've dedicated your career to language assessment. Could you share a little
Yeah.
bit about the core principles that underpin your approach to developing assessments?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are, the kind of industry standard things that are absolutely imperative, the kind of
Mm,
non-negotiables about quality assessment, that you need the assessment to be reliable, accurate, valid, and all of those
mm,
things are absolutely central to what we do. To create these tests that do have this moral, ethical accountability for what they're
mm,
designed to do. Um, and in terms of my approach that I've taken when developing this test for academic proficiency is to think about to take a really kind of I mean, you can test anything, right? You can test
mm,
you can do anything in a test. The world is your oyster, but you
mm,
have to understand that what it is that you choose to test, by definition, if the test is popular and it has uptake, that is what people are going to be practicing because they want to do well on the
mm,
test. So
mm,
when you're selecting what it is that you're going to test, you need to really think about what that is, because you are kind of, by definition, promoting it. Any
mm,
test is an abstraction of reality because you're kind of sampling a real world skill in the format of
mm,
I don't know, a 2 hour, 3 hour slot. But
mhm,
whatever those things are, you need to make sure that they're worthy actually of your learner's
mm,
time, teaching time,
mhm,
and that after that test is taken, they're going to have some value in the real world.
mm, mm,
So, spent a lot of time thinking about the definition of what it is that students will need to be able to do once they get to university, once they're through that
mm,
door,
mm,
and what they will be able to take with them. And I think that's a very kind of it's a very human centered approach to test development. And I think that's
mm,
We're part of LANGUAGECERT, is part of PeopleCert. And if you haven't heard of PeopleCert, you may well have heard of the qualifications they offer, which are kind of business, IT, business and IT and
Project
professional
manager.
project
Yeah.
management qualifications,
Mm.
Prince, ITIL, those kind of
Yeah.
things. That's well established. And the comparatively, the languages part of PeopleCert is relatively new compared to this established part of the business. But
Mm.
people in PeopleCert are really important, and I'm
Mm.
really proud to actually work for an organisation which is putting people, the humans,
Mm.
so our
Mm.
stakeholders, the students, the test takers, the teachers, the decision makers at the heart of that process.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I've taken this expansive, kind of holistic approach to test development in thinking about what that student has to do. So I don't,
Mm.
it's avoiding that this test of language proficiency becomes a kind of checkbox
Right.
activity.
Yes.
You,
Yeah, it's actually
you
a
can
task, worth doing.
oh,
It's a benefit
exactly.
to the
You're
student.
going to
Yeah.
practice something, make it something worthwhile,
Yeah.
and and that human centered approach, um, it permeates everything. So
Mm.
I talked about the test construct. So what, really defining what this test is envisaging that student will
Mm.
need to do on their journeys, right?
Mm. Mhm.
Their academic journey, their professional journey,
Yeah.
their journey of personal
Personal
growth.
journey. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the linguistic repertoire that they're going to need to be able
Mm.
to navigate those journeys?
Mm.
But then also thinking about how that's delivered.
Mhm.
How do we deliver? Because there are lots of ways to do it. There are some cheap and dirty ways to do it, and
Mm.
there are some ways that do it that actually are congruent with what it is that you're trying to promote.
Mm.
And
Mm.
you mentioned at the start, I'm coming to talk about oracy in the age of AI. That
Mhm.
is one of the key features, I guess, that we're wanting to have at the heart of our test is it's a test of communicative language
Mm.
ability. So yeah, it costs
Yes.
a little more to have a human examiner, costs a
Mm.
little more to have a human proctor guiding that test taker through the process.
Mm.
But what it is that they gain from that human interaction
Mm.
um, is worth way more than the sum of the
Oh, it's
parts.
invaluable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we often hear about the term kind of human in the loop.
Yes. Very
How
good.
is that kind of in your mind? How is that different to your concept of a human-centered approach? I mean, is there a subtle difference between, human in the loop versus a human-centered approach? Can you kind of expand on that a little?
I re I really I believe that there is. I know that it's terminology, right?
Mm.
It's become a bit of a buzzword, hasn't it? Human in
Mm.
the loop.
Mm.
But I have this kind of, maybe it's being a linguist. We're linguists. We understand what these things kind of can imply, what can be inferred from using different
Mm.
types of language. So I'm keen not to position myself as some sort of laggard coming to Australia and saying, we all need to go back to writing with a quill. It isn't that at all. But
Mm.
thinking about the language we use to express these things, exactly what you've just asked me, Patrick. What does
Mm.
human in the loop mean? To me, that does imply a kind of loss of autonomy, a little
Mm.
bit of kind of maybe losing something of our human agency
Mm.
to a machine, to an algorithm.
Mhm.
It's not the robots are coming to take our jobs kind of thing, but
Mm.
there's something in there about control.
Yes.
And I think a human centered, human led, human driven is way more it kind of embodies more the
Mm.
approach that I think we need to empower ourselves to be able to take in
Mm.
these tech driven days. Does
Yeah,
that make
huge.
sense?
Totally makes sense, and I'm totally with you on that. The kind of when you think about how humans connect to one another and interact, we're
Yeah,
wired to be interacting face to face, and
yeah,
the amount of information that you are receiving from my face right now, even though it's
it's,
through Zoom, and my
yeah,
hands and my gestures,
yeah,
it's I think we can't underestimate just how much of our communication is picked up through that kind of face-to-face interaction. So,
yeah,
tell me a little bit about, um, we talked a little bit about the human element versus
yeah,
automation, and how this perspective, is aligned with the people in people cert, and really kind of acknowledging the vital role of educators.
yeah.
What's your view on this? Like, can you expand on the kind of people aspect?
The people aspect. So yeah, having the people at the very heart of what we do. So we're living in this kind of this age, and I emphasize it's not me being a kind of a laggard or a doom monger in any way, but you think about the kind of world that Gen Z students are living in now. These are my test takers. This is the
Mm,
cohort I'm dealing with. And I heard somebody describe this as the 5 Cs. They've lived through
mhm,
COVID, climate change, cost of living, cyberspace, and conflict.
mm.
These are
Yes, that's
these are really.
they're big things. Yeah.
I'm particularly passionate about this because I have a couple of Gen Zs myself at home,
Oh,
and I can
okay.
see this. I'm kind of living. I'm kind of living it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and this is what I mean about how assessment might be able to do something more. So I think it's really important to emphasize this is first, and the test for the Language Cert academic test is first and foremost a test of English language proficiency.
Mm,
But I think there's tremendous power in extra linguistic skills, some of those things you were just talking
mm,
about that we're sharing now, even virtually,
mm,
empathy, reassurance, we're kind of,
mm,
getting the measure of each other just through this chat.
mm,
And I think that in navigating their kind of academic lives, their personal lives, their professional lives, our our students really, you know, need to to have this body of skills kind of fostered or nurtured. There are some sort of
mm,
softer words, things like enhanced, through the vehicle of assessment in the type of tasks that they're
mm,
exposed to. That's one way to do
mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to be speaking a little bit about the oracy skills, and that, of course, is more than just speaking. It's speaking, listening, and communication. Um, but through the task, through the content that you're
Mm,
asking the students to work through,
yes.
so the
Yeah.
text that form the basis for a reading comprehension can or can certainly be about some of these things, about
Mm,
critical thinking, about
yeah.
empathy, about how we foster these things, just to kind
Mm,
of elevate, promote, and surface them
mm.
in the minds of these test takers.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's really kind of it's really important. I think to introduce those things from the very beginning, because in the Australian context, all universities in Australia have a list of graduate kind of attributes that they
yeah,
want and aspire their graduates to have.
yeah,
And if you look across the board in the universities in Australia and New Zealand, those graduate attributes can range, everything from communication, collaboration, creativity. So those kind of what we used to call the 21st century skills, but also can move into things like tolerance, empathy,
yeah,
ethical kind of perspective, global citizenship. So I think it's awesome that there's an opportunity with Language Cert Academic to introduce those, concepts at the very
Yeah,
beginning of the student's journey,
yeah,
because ultimately
yeah,
at the end they're having to, demonstrate those
yeah.
concepts, as part of their graduate attributes. So I think it's really
Yeah.
exciting that there's a test that has this, in its DNA, and it's great to
Yeah.
hear you speak
Well,
about
the
it. I
thing
think it's more
is,
important than ever.
it's really true what you're saying about taking it back. And one of the places I went to, first of all, when I was thinking about these kind of skills, is a UNESCO framework. So
Mm,
starting with children, starting from the very, very, taking it right back before university. I thought, well, I if these are, if these are the skills identified by a children's, UNICEF, children's charity, the UNICEF framework of global skills, transferable skills, they refer to them as the magic glue, but kind of they
okay.
don't be used in isolation. But if you've
Mm,
got that magic glue and you are able to apply it throughout your different journeys, throughout your different studies, whatever path you're on, you
yeah.
are, but imagine by the end of an academic degree, you are so well placed
Mm,
to be able to use these. And one of the things I reflect on as a language learner myself is just how many of these skills are actually inherent in language learning. If you think of language learning as as a process, it's a kind of
mm,
voyage in its own right. It's a voyage of
mm.
self-discovery in its own right. When you are learning a language, you're learning as much about yourself and your own language as you are about the culture and language
That's right. Yes.
that you're acquiring, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think inherent in this group of, all I'm sure loads of people listening that we're going to be language learners. I'm going to be speaking to language learners when I'm there.
Mm,
We
mm,
can we can kind of brainstorm the different skills and attributes that we have, and just how many of those skills are actually form part of this. Call them what you will, 21st century skills, soft skills. I hate, but if you think
mm,
about resilience. Language learners are resilient. Language learners are problem solvers. They can't think of the way
mm,
to say something. They'll try and find another way. Language learners are empathetic. They're looking for
mm,
all sorts of other ways to try and reach an understanding. They're good communicators. They're
mm,
able to think critically. And where I'm coming from is a place not of thinking that it's a position of deficit where you have a group of test takers for whom these skills are absent. I'm
mm.
coming from a position where actually
It's a strength. Yeah.
they're off to a flying start
Mm, mm.
just by having spent time and energy learning another language. They have done a lot of these things already. They're kind of ready to have them
Yes.
enhanced and brought
Yes.
out and
Yeah.
told and celebrated. You've got these
Yes.
skills. Let's go,
I
guys. Let's
I
use
think that's
them.
a
Yeah.
great message, because the kind of deficit model of the international student in kind of on an Australian campus is certainly
Mhm.
one that I know many of the listeners to this chat will kind of understand the struggle, and reframing the deficit into a
Yeah.
strength, and looking at our international students as kind of global citizens and even heroes in that space, I think is a great way to
Totally,
reframe.
totally.
And so does this link to your call
I love that.
to revive the Viva? I know some of your LinkedIn
Yeah.
articles, you talk
Yeah,
about the importance of oracy and the Viva. Can you talk
yeah,
a little bit about your thoughts on that?
absolutely. So, without preempting everything that I want to say when I come, but,
Don't give it all away. Save something
yeah.
for your
So
presentations in
think about
Australia, but
these. Think about these. Yeah, think about these skills. You've got these skills. 21st century skills, dead terminology for me because we're already like a quarter of the way through.
mm,
Soft skills, I absolutely hate that. That's a little bit like verging on human in the loop type of signifier. These are not
mm,
soft skills. I want
mm,
to kind of argue that these are human skills. And when we're thinking about, you've got this kind of binary distinction now. You've got human and you've got machine, human and
mm,
AI. These are human skills. At a conference I was speaking at recently, somebody said if language is power, these are the power skills
Oh,
that you
I
need
love that
to really
terminology, the power skills.
power skills.
Yeah,
Up
yeah,
until that point, rather grandly and maybe a bit pretentiously, I've been calling them skills for humanity because I think they are what make us uniquely human.
yeah,
These are the
yeah.
skills that machines don't have.
Mm,
A machine
yes,
cannot empathize.
yes.
A machine cannot think critically. It can do the opposite, right?
Mm,
A machine
yeah.
isn't actually thinking.
Mm,
Artificial intelligence is one of the biggest misnomers of our time. So
yes,
you
yes.
you
Well,
have
and the
this
kind of that I've heard you refer to it as the AI hallucination. I mean, I'm not sure if that's your
AI
terminology.
hallucinations.
Mm,
It's not, sadly, I'm not that clever. It's not my terminology, but it is a thing, and it is something I'm going
yes.
to be talking about.
Oh, great.
How AI output has become like a slave to itself.
Mm,
It's being fed with more AI generated output than human input. So
mm,
we really need these human skills. That's what
mm,
I'm going to settle on, I think, is human
yeah.
skills or
Mm,
transformation skills. And the skills of oracy are an
yes.
absolutely vital subset of these skills
Yeah.
that we need. And I
Mm,
think that they are becoming a really interesting and important um, feature, if you like, of academic assessment, a way to
mm,
preserve our kind of academic integrity.
mm,
And our understanding of academic integrity is some kind of oral defense, a
mm,
viva,
mm,
but it has been applied over time in a small subset of
mm,
scenarios. You'd be familiar with it as part of your PhD. You stand up and you
mm,
defend. There is such a compelling argument that including this kind of oral defense of written work can be applied in lots of other scenarios across lots of other disciplines as a way to really explore, probe a little
mm,
bit,
mm,
how much that learner has understood their argument, or how much they may have, used some sort of generative AI
mm,
model
mm,
to create their answer. Why to use it? It's a tool. Like I said, I'm not
mm,
a complete laggard with these things.
mm,
But how has it been used? How critically have you reviewed it? When you think
mm,
about, we talk about Gen AI, generative AI. The flip side is degenerative AI. And AI
mm,
is, this large learning model is just statistical, it's an algorithm, it's feeding itself, it's reducing everything to the mean. We're losing a great deal in terms of diversity, in terms of
mm,
rich tapestry of everything that makes us human is just being reduced to
mm.
the most likely word to come after the last one. And
Right.
I'm compelled by this idea of including oral assessment. I know that it's more resource intensive, but this is the thing. This is people before platform, and
Mm, mm,
you know, eh, for individuals, for employers, for even for universities certifying performance. They don't really want to know. They don't really want the output as being the physical written essay.
mm,
What that degree stands for is your own agency and your autonomy of thought, and that you've been through
mm,
that process and you've reached your own conclusions and you can defend them, you can adjust them, you can reframe them. That's what a university education is all about. And that is the
mm,
skill of our educators to do that.
mm, mm.
And I love the analogy where somebody said that if you are just using ChatGPT to create your responses to take home assessments, it's like taking a forklift to the gym to lift weights.
Mm.
There's no, get the benefit, the gain doesn't come in creating this,
Yes,
piece of writing. The gain is the process
the
and
process. Yes.
what you gain. And the oracy skills, again, building on something that's really important in primary school. There's a great focus on oracy
Mm,
in primary. Why is it neglected as we get older?
mm.
You
Yeah,
know
good
the
question. Yeah. I mean,
So
sometimes it's probably, yeah, I mean, our whole assessment system at the university level is being kind of flipped around, I think, and, moving away from reliance on the writing and, because of the use of Gen
yeah,
AI. So, last question, and then we're just going to have to
absolutely.
leave. We're just going to have to leave the audience with a pressing urgency to come and see you
Yeah,
at your
please do.
presentations in Australia. So, very quickly, you have talked about radical kindness. What is this
Yeah.
concept? Can you give us a
Oh,
sneak
this
peek?
is
I mean, I know
something
you'll go into it with your presentation in Australia,
this
but
is
yeah.
Yeah, this is something
Radical
that
kindness.
only yeah, this is only something that's sort of come into my awareness with the most recent conferences that I've attended. But I saw somebody called Dr. Jenna Mittelmeier, who's fabulous. Anybody, I urge anybody to take a look at her on LinkedIn and the work she's been doing in relation to defining radical kindness in international assessment is absolutely like compelling. It's compelling stuff. But she stood up and she talked about the importance of caring for the souls of one another, the very souls
Mm,
of one another, and seeing and respecting one another's humanity. Um, and again, humanity, human is at the heart of our
mm,
humanity. And in our teaching, learning, assessment practice, we always need to be mindful that we are caring for the souls of one another. And how that
mm,
translates is in the kind of things, just those things we've been talking about today, Patrick, like, um, education is about empathy, not coming from a
mm,
deficit point of view, not
mm,
believing that there's something lacking in an international students, but thinking about what the reciprocal value is for all of us in our
mm,
interactions if we respect each other's humanity, um, and not critiquing students, not this kind of blame of you're cheating, sort of allegation of cheating, or
mm,
not critiquing students in that way, but sort of investigating the structures that they're given to work with.
mm, Brilliant.
So
And I think that's yeah,
empowering them
empowering them.
yeah,
I think that's
to
a
do
great
all the
point to finish up on. And Cathy, I'd like to thank you for your time. It's been a wonderful chat, and I hope we can do more of these in the future together.
yeah,
And certainly, I know the audience is going to really appreciate kind of what you've got to say. So we're really looking forward to have you come over to Australia. And just a reminder for our listeners. Cathy's going to be presenting in Melbourne at the English Australia Victoria PD Fest, 17th of May. So register if you haven't already. And then in Sydney at the NIAS Management Conference on the 22nd of May, which you can get tickets from the NIAS website for. And finally, Cathy's going to present at the English Australia New South Wales PD Fest on the 24th of May, which you can also grab tickets for. So grab your tickets from the respective websites, and can't wait to have you over, Cathy, and look forward to seeing everybody in the presentations. Thanks,
thanks so
Cathy.
much, Patrick. I always value our conversations and our collaborations. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Me too. Take care. See you soon.
Bye.